Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I'm working on a video that's going to put together some of the most explosive clips. But as I was doing that, I listened again to Nadler's opening statement, and I'm just going to do a video that's an inline rebuttal to this statement because he just says so much here, and there's so many accusations, and I'm just going to go through it with you. Let you hear it. I hope the sound balances out both ways so you can hear both of us. But here we go.
Thank you. I will never recognize myself for an opening statement. Mr. Whitaker, I want to begin my remarks by commending the tradition of independent law enforcement at the Department of Justice. As you and I both know, it is the career officials at the Department, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's offices whose commitment to the rule of law protects our democracy.
Okay, I need you to focus here on the word career officials, okay? The career officials are the ones that have been in there forever, and this is the deep state that we're working against, okay? Those are the people that he wants to focus on, the career officials, the people who really know what they're doing, the career officials. And I don't know if you're familiar with the SES, the Senior Executive Service, but that's pretty much what he's talking about, and they are mostly deep state people. So this is why his focus is there, and I think in just a minute you'll see why even more so. So let's go on.
Given the focus of this hearing, I therefore feel compelled to single out for praise the career ethics officials who helped you transition into your role as Acting Attorney General.
Okay, there the word is again, career. The career is the word that he's focusing on, and you'll hear him say it several times because that's who they think Whitaker should be listening to, is the career officials, the people who have been in there forever who know what they're doing. Okay, and really that's who he should not be listening to, because the career officials are in the deep state. And that's why these people desperately wanted him to listen to them, because they wanted him not in charge of Rosenstein and of the Mueller investigation.
On December 20th, in a letter from the department meant to justify some of the decisions we will examine here today, Congress learned the following, quote, in a meeting with the Acting Attorney General's senior staff, ethics officials concluded that if a recommendation were sought, they would advise that the Acting Attorney General should recuse himself from supervision of the special counsel investigation, because it was their view that a reasonable person with knowledge of the relevant facts likely would question the impartiality of the Acting Attorney General.
See, this was the whole focus of this particular hearing. I mean, really it was. Matt Whitaker and Trump were the focus. It had nothing to do with oversight of the Department of Justice, which is what they're supposed to be doing. Anyway, so this is the situation here with this. They are trying to get Matt Whitaker. They were very upset that Matt Whitaker stepped in because they desperately needed Rod Rosenstein to stay in charge of the Mueller investigation. Desperately. Okay, and you hear their desperation, really. If you're listening for it, you hear that what they're talking about sounds desperate. It really does. So let's go on.
Close quote. In other words, even though you apparently did not ask for their advice on this topic, these career officials went out of their way to tell you that your many public past criticisms of the special counsel's investigation were grounds for you to step aside.
Did you hear that? He said they went out of their way to tell him that. So these people, make no mistake, these people were put in there, these ethics people were tasked with getting Whitaker to recuse himself. Whitaker refused to do that. And it was perfectly legal what he did, because recusal is something that you choose to do. It is not something that's forced upon you. You're not forced to recuse yourself. They have to make a choice for that. And in this particular case, Whitaker chose not to do that. And I think he made a wise choice. I think he made the best choice. So they desperately wanted him recused because they needed Rosenstein in charge. These people are very scared of Matt Whitaker because at any time he could release the FISA and all those other documents they've been asking for. He could do that. Now, I don't think he's going to do that. I think Barr's going to do it. But I do think there's a very distinct possibility that before Matt Whitaker leaves, he's going to fire Rod Rosenstein. It's a possibility. Because if he would do that, then everybody would hate him, which they already do. And then Barr could come in and kind of take over the situation and smooth things out, and he would be looked on as the fixer, the one who comes in to fix it. So I think maybe Matt Whitaker was put in there in that particular position to take the heat for getting rid of Rosenstein. And there have been some other things I think he's been doing that we're not aware of yet, but I do think that he has been working for us. I mean, he's a good guy. He really is. He's definitely a white hat.
They insisted that your recusal would have been right for the department and good for the country. They gave you this advice with no guarantee that their jobs would be protected. 2 years.
Oh, yeah, they're deep state. They're not going to lose their jobs. Duh. I mean, really. And that would be good for the country. No, it was good for the deep state. That's what it was good for. That's why they wanted it done. That's what they did to Sessions.
Into an administration distinguished for firing officials at the department and the FBI who offended the president.
Okay, now, they didn't fire the FBI people because they offended the president. They fired them because they did illegal things. They illegally spied on American citizens, and that is not done. It violates our Fourth Amendment, so you just can't do that. And all of the officials that were removed from the top echelons of the FBI were removed for violations, and Trump had nothing to do with them being fired. They were all fired because of a recommendation by the Professional Responsibilities Office. So they were all put out perfectly legally, perfectly according to the FBI procedures. Yes, they were gone because of that. And if you're not familiar with it, there were several in the top leadership positions of the FBI who've been removed. In fact, pretty much everybody who was working on mid-year exam, which was the Hillary Clinton email thing, everybody involved in that has been removed from their power. Some of them have been fired, some of them have been demoted, but probably all of them will end up being gone. So, yeah, it's been fun watching it. And Sessions did have to sign off on all of those. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he was responsible for it. It means that that was the end of the procedure. I mean, he was the one that at the end that had to put his name on there, that they would be gone. But they were all removed because of procedures, proper procedures. And some of them, yes, are still there, but they won't be much longer. Okay? So, yeah. Nadler. Let's go on.
They did so knowing that Attorney General Sessions had just been removed for no reason other than following their guidance 2 years earlier.
Okay, that's not why Sessions was removed. First of all, during the course of this, and I can't remember exactly where it was, but even Whitaker indicated through what he was saying that Sessions was not removed. Sessions resigned. And why did he resign? Well, those of you who follow Q, you understand that he resigned because his role in this operation was over. I think he's going to move to a new role, actually, because he used to be in the military. And I think it's likely that he's going to be working with one of the military courts, either as a prosecutor or maybe a judge. I don't know what he's going to be doing, but I do think he's stepping into another role. I don't think his part in this is over. He may also run for Senate again. I don't know, but he's not done yet. And those of you who hated Sessions or you thought he wasn't doing any good, you really need to hold off on that, because I think that man was doing a whole lot more than everybody knows. I'm a big Sessions fan because I do think that we need to trust Sessions. I think he did some valuable things. It's just that they were off the radar and people have not seen them yet. They haven't come out in public. Remember, he's the one that tasked Huber with his job, and also we had Donahue was another one, I think, that he was responsible for getting him in there and working. There were some things that he tasked people to do that, again, we're not seeing the results of yet. We will soon. But anyway, so yeah, see, this is misinformation here that he's putting out because he's telling you something that is not true. First of all, I don't believe Sessions was fired. And if you've watched my previous videos a long time ago, I've said this for a while because I did not see any letter from the president firing him. I did not see him fired by tweet. I did not see anything that technically fired Sessions. And Sessions' resignation letter had no date on it. Also, there was an executive order that Trump did way back shortly after he was inaugurated that had to do with the succession rules of the DOJ. So it was almost like he was prepared then for Sessions leaving. So this was part of the plan. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure that the exact date. I think maybe they were hoping that they would get the House too, but if they didn't get the House, then Sessions would leave and they'd bring in Whitaker. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows what the plan is. But I do think that Sessions played an important role, and I think he did his job very well. So those who think that he did nothing, that was a charade. When Trump would say things about Sessions, it really was a charade. The only thing that wasn't a charade is one time he tweeted and said, "Way to go, Jeff." I think he was honestly praising Jeff because I think he was doing the things he wanted to. Trump couldn't say anything nice about him because if he did say nice things about Sessions, this would have happened. You know, they would have given Sessions a horrible time. And that's not what we needed done. We needed him to fly under the radar. I really think that's what was going on. So anyway, let's go on.
Their advice to you is an act of bravery. It is worthy of the best tradition of independence and integrity at the Department of Justice.
Oh yes, those brave deep staters. They were brave because they told you you should recuse yourself. I mean, really, do you see how he's painting them?
But in my view, your conduct, including your decision to ignore important ethics advice when you became acting Attorney General, no matter the consequences, falls well short of the mark.
Okay, now, are you getting the picture here?
Before you join...
Let me stop for a minute. Are you getting the picture here? Nadler is accusing Whitaker of being prejudiced because of things that he said before he was hired on at the DOJ. Okay, do you get the irony here? What is Nadler doing? He just said, pretty much, he hates this guy. He just told you his opinion, and he's already formed it before any of this takes place. It is so ironic. I mean, it's so hypocritical. They sit there and they accuse Whitaker of doing exactly what he's doing. Projection, psychological projection. I'll put that video in so you can watch it. It just is the same thing over and over. This is what we see from them. They're accusing us, or, you know, the conservatives, of doing exactly what they have been doing. And so that's what Nadler did right there. He was just accusing Whitaker of exactly what he was doing. He shows his bias. He gives a statement with his bias in it. And in the same breath, he turns around and accuses Whitaker of the same thing. Oh, just crazy. The difference was Whitaker can separate his bias. So, you know, if Whitaker couldn't separate his bias, he would have already fired Rosenstein. Okay? He would have. Just that's all there's to it. And a lot of things, he would have declassified everything. He would have shut down Mueller. Everything would have already been done. So we know that's not true. We know that he has been doing a good job of keeping his bias out of things. But Nadler, no, he can't even keep it out of this hearing. He has to tell the guy his opinion right off. And so we already know his bias.
The Department of Justice as Chief of Staff to former Attorney General Sessions, you were the sole full-time employee of the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. The organization has been described by Republicans as, quote, a chop shop for fake ethics complaints, unquote.
Okay, by Republicans? Which Republicans? FACT, which is the name of the organization, whatever he just said. It was an organization. It was kind of like a watchdog organization. And so, no, I know of no Republicans that would ever call it what he just said. Anyone. So I don't know who they're talking about. Probably John McCain. That's probably who he's referring to, and we know who McCain was now.
Against Democratic politicians. FACT, as it is called, also funded your appearances in print and on cable television in the years leading up to your tenure at DOJ. These media appearances, and this is why this is relevant, have become the cause of much concern. 1 month before you joined the administration, you wrote a column titled, quote, "Mueller's investigation of Trump is going too far," unquote. You stated that the investigation was, quote, "a lynch mob." You warned of...
Okay, now, as the testimony went on, the lynch mob comment we found out was not from Whitaker. He was quoting an article, and so he was using the terminology that that particular author had written, and so he was referring to it that way. So it was not his. He was just using that in context with referring to the article. Plus, all of this, making statements, this is what's so funny. All of this was done before he was a member of the DOJ. Okay? So he was a private citizen during this time, all of this happening. So why did this never come up with people like Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch, who did similar things? You see the double standard? It frustrates me when I see people with double standards. You say one thing for one group of people, and then it's different rules for somebody else. I hate that. It's just irritating to me.
Serious consequences if the special counsel were to examine the president's personal finances. You suggested that the special counsel's budget should be squeezed until his investigation, quote, "grinds to almost a halt." Like everyone else at the Department of Justice, you're entitled to your own political opinions.
See, he just said, you're entitled to your own political opinions. Okay, so why are you complaining about him having political opinions about these things? Why is that a problem? He was not part of the Department of Justice at the time that these came out. He's not done anything like this since he's become acting Attorney General.
This committee should not be in the business of vilifying government personnel for their private views.
Yet this entire hearing has been vilifying someone for their political views. That's really what happened. It was really crazy, especially when he says this. It's, we're not in the business of vilifying. But you did.
Particularly when the department takes steps to mitigate even the appearance of a conflict of interest in an ongoing investigation. But when career officials at the department recommended...
Did you catch the career again? Career officials. Career officials told you that you should recuse yourself. Yeah, the deep state career officials that we're trying to get out because they're corrupt.
...that you take steps to mitigate your apparent conflicts of interest. When they told you that your public criticism of the special counsel was bad for the department and bad for the administration of justice, you ignored them.
Okay, first of all, that's not what they said. And secondly, who are these people? Did we vote for them? Were they appointed by someone that we voted for? I'm not sure how they get into that position to be an ethics expert. How do you get that position? I didn't vote for them. And when we're dealing with career people in these departments who have not been voted for, I think we have real problems. Because who oversees them? Who oversees the ethics officials here that are telling him, these career officials? Who oversees them to know that what they're saying and the advice they're giving is honest and unbiased? Well, again, remember, this was a targeted attack at Whitaker because they desperately needed Rosenstein in that position. Without Rosenstein there as the acting Attorney General, they've been in trouble because they needed him there to keep all the deep state dirt hidden away from us so nobody would see it.
You decided that your private interest in overseeing this particular investigation, and perhaps others from which you should have been recused, was more important than the integrity of the department. The question that this committee must now ask is, why?
No, that's not what the committee is supposed to ask. The committee is supposed to be talking to him about the different programs and things that the Department of Justice is doing. That's not what this is. If this were a confirmation hearing, like they do in the Senate for the Supreme Court justices and what we saw with Kavanaugh, then that would be an honest question. Those would be good questions to be asking. What he's doing right here is saying, you didn't listen to our people telling you to recuse yourself, so we're going to do whatever we can to get rid of you. I mean, that's really what they were doing. And a while back, I did a video on a letter that Dianne Feinstein wrote, and it was Dianne Feinstein saying, you have these 3 people that you want to appoint to the Ninth Circuit Court, and we don't want those. So you shouldn't be able to choose which ones. If I remember correctly, she wrote it to Grassley, but it really was basically saying President Trump has no right to nominate people to the Ninth Circuit that we don't like. I mean, really, that's the way it came across. The name of the video is Feinstein Wines, and I'll try to put that in here so you can see what it looks like. But yeah, I recommend that one too. I know it's from a ways back, but actually it's coming into play now because they are just getting to some of these nominations, as you probably saw in my last video. So let's go on.
Why did President Trump choose to replace Attorney General Sessions with an outspoken critic of the special counsel instead of with any number of qualified individuals who had already received Senate confirmation?
Okay, this is a stickler. This is something that he brings up all the time, the Senate confirmation. Well, I've got news for you, Jerry. You don't have to have him Senate confirmed for an interim, temporary, acting position. There is a law they're talking about, and it was like from 1978, I believe, and I will probably think of it after I'm done with this, but it was to fill vacancies. Some Vacancy Act. I can't remember the exact name of it right now. But yeah, the Vacancy Act of 1978, and it has to do with how you put people in. Yes, it's perfectly, absolutely legal to have someone in there. I believe it's for 210 days that can work in an acting position because confirmations take time. And there simply was not time after Sessions was out. Who was supposed to take over? He wanted somebody who was Senate confirmed. Well, that would have meant Rosenstein. So that's who they wanted. I'm telling you, this was all because Rosenstein didn't get put in there. And why didn't Trump appoint Rosenstein? Because Rosenstein's part of the deep state people. Now, there's a lot of talk about whether he's a black hat or a gray hat, kind of the in-between, or if he's been turned or whatever. I don't know really the status of him. I do know that he's a pivotal point, and when he's removed, then we're going to see a flood of different documents that have been held back. That's the person that the deep state was counting on to keep everything held back. So that's why they are so passionate about Matt Whitaker. They did not want him in there. They wanted Rosenstein to get that position. And if Rosenstein would have gotten it, oh, can you imagine? It would have been a lot worse than it's been. Well, Whitaker got in there to just make sure that didn't happen. I'm positive that's why Trump put him in there. He put him in there for a reason, and he knew that he was a strong character, that he was a good man who had an inner strength that would be able to take on something like this. And he did a great job, I will tell you that.
Why did you ignore the career officials who went to extraordinary lengths to tell you that your continued involvement in the special counsel's work would undermine the credibility of the Department of Justice?
Okay, did you notice what he said there? They went to extraordinary lengths. I'm telling you, these people were desperate. That is an act of desperation. Why else would you do that? Go to extraordinary lengths. First of all, how do we know they went to extraordinary lengths? It doesn't sound like it from Matt's testimony that that's what they did. But did they go to extraordinary lengths? I don't know. We only have Nadler's word on that, and I'm not going to take that to the bank. This, again, indicates to me a desperation, that they were desperate to keep him out, to get him out any way possible.
Why did you choose to comment at length on the substance of the special counsel's investigation at a January 29th press conference?
That, I think, is a fair question, but I don't remember the press conference itself, so I don't know exactly what he said. Can't remember. Sorry, I've heard so many pressers lately. But yeah, I don't know exactly what the circumstances were there, why he would ask that particular question. But again, none of these things that he's bringing up have to do with oversight of the Department of Justice. This is all an attack on Matt Whitaker. Everything he said so far has been an attack on Matt Whitaker himself.
Is it true that you have been fully briefed, unquote, on the investigation and that the special counsel's work is, quote, close to being completed?
Okay, well, he's the acting attorney general, so yes, he would be fully briefed on it. That's what he's supposed to be. I mean, why would he not be fully briefed on it? I don't even understand why he's asking that, why that would be something that would be important, because That's his job. That's what he was tasked to do. As the acting attorney general, that's what he was put in to do. He was put in there to oversee things, the Department of Justice, and one of those things happens to be Mueller's investigation. Now, as for Mueller's investigation coming out soon, oh yeah, it is. I think within the next 30 days, we're going to see Mueller's investigation, the results of it. And the results are not going to be what these Democrats want to see, because there is no collusion. We all know that. There's no collusion. It's not going to happen. If Mueller had found any evidence before this that there was collusion or there was any dirt on Trump, believe me, it would have come out a long time ago. So it's not there. It's just not there. And they're looking for an invisible unicorn, and they're not finding it. They're going to be very frustrated when they find out that that invisible unicorn doesn't exist. So let's go on.
Unquote. And why did President Trump leave you running the department in an acting capacity as long as he did?
Because he needed somebody in there while he was looking around for a good person to become the new Attorney General? I mean, that's kind of a silly question. Why did he leave him in there that long? He hasn't been in there that long. Remember, Sessions resigned officially the day after the November election. Well, this is only February. He's only been in there for a few months, and that's really just not very long in this whole process of putting in nominations. Look at all these judges that are still sitting there. These people have been waiting for a year or more, some of them 2 years, waiting to be confirmed. So don't give me this, oh, why did he leave you in there so long? It's like, really? Seriously, you're asking that? Why did you leave all those judges in the Senate sitting there unconfirmed?
What did he hope to get out of it? What did you...
That's the question right there. What did he hope to get out of it? What did Trump hope to get out of it, leaving you in place? This is the point of this. Not only did they want to take Whitaker down, but they were hoping somewhere along the line they would find out that Trump was the puppeteer, that Trump was pulling all of Whitaker's strings. And Whitaker put that to rest very handily. He really did. And he took the wind out of their sails more than once on it. So that was the main question right there. They were trying to get at Trump, trying to figure out if there's some way they can use whatever this guy would say for the impeachment offense of obstruction. So they're desperate. I'm telling you, they are desperate.
The committee is determined to find the answers to these questions today. To that end, we have taken certain steps to ensure your cooperation with members on both sides of the aisle. First, although I am pleased that you eventually agreed to appear here voluntarily, the committee has authorized me to issue a subpoena to compel your testimony if necessary.
Okay, the subpoena. Why would they authorize him to issue a subpoena to somebody who voluntarily came to testify? Well, it's because they are desperate to get some dirt on Trump. They need him to say something that's going to expose Trump, that's going to reveal that Trump has been pulling Whitaker's strings. That's what they are looking for. Because in their minds, they really do believe that Trump told Whitaker, you have to stop Robert Mueller. That's what they believe. That's not true, obviously. And I don't even think they probably talked much about this. I don't know what they've talked about because, it's the President of the United States. I think who he talks to and what they say should be private. I mean, I don't think that should be something that everyone hears about. Obviously, if someday I would get to meet the president, which I would really love, that would be great, and he just chit-chats with me, that's one thing. But when you're in a meeting with somebody who's a cabinet member, that's kind of important. I don't think the president's discussions with his cabinet members should be put out in the public. It's just not appropriate. If he doesn't have any confidence in his cabinet members, then, where are we with that? How is he supposed to be able to conduct business? So I really think they're grasping for straws here. So since they're liberals, would that mean that they have to be fined if they're grasping for straws anymore? I don't know. So let's go on.
The ranking member will no doubt argue that the subpoena threat was a mistake, but as you know, I gave you no assurances until after you had agreed to appear today. Given our concerns about your attendance until late last night, are taking steps to ensure your appearance seems perfectly appropriate. Now that you are here and prepared to testify, I agree there's no need for us to resort to that measure.
Yeah, there's no need to resort to that measure. Listen.
For now.
For now. So, yeah, for now. So, at this point, but we're leaving that option open. The subpoena would put him under a little more pressure to say some things, and that could put him in a difficult position with some of the things that he and Trump have talked about, or possibly with investigations that are ongoing. So it would put him in a very, very difficult spot, and it's really not something you want to be doing. Think about that. I mean, you're subpoenaing the person who is the top law enforcement official in the entire United States. Does that even make sense?
I am nonetheless concerned by some of the arguments the department raised in the lengthy letter we received late yesterday. I very much doubt, for example, that any privilege attaches to communications about criminal investigations where the president, his campaign, his business, and his close associates are subjects and in some cases targets of the investigation.
Okay, once again, he reinforces really who their target is, and that's Trump. Because he says, well, I just doubt that any of those would be privileged. Now, wait a minute. It's an ongoing investigation. Aren't all ongoing investigations supposed to be kept private? They're not supposed to talk about them? And this is the thing with Huber. A lot of people say nothing's going on with Huber, but that's because it's a good DOJ and they aren't leaking that information, and they're not supposed to. So they're doing what they're supposed to do, and that's keep it quiet until the investigation is finished.
I also take issue with your written testimony, which we did not receive until almost midnight last night.
I think that's funny. I don't know. I haven't really looked for the written testimony, but I think that's too funny that he didn't give it to him till midnight the night before. That is just so hysterical. Timing, I'll tell you, because they've done this to us. You understand. And I think it's really great that they're getting some of their own medicine right now, because that's what the conservatives on these committees have been facing for years, because this is exactly what they do.
When you suggest that you, quote, will continue the longstanding executive branch policy and practice of not disclosing information that may be subject to executive privilege, close quote. In other words, you reserve the right to refuse to answer the question forever. That's not how it works.
Oh, yes, it is. It is something that when they're having discussions with the president, there is an extra level of protection there. So, sorry, Jerry. Gotcha on that one. I don't think so. Now, Jerry, of course, hopes that's how it works, but sorry, not going to happen. When you have people who are full of integrity, they just don't break under stuff like this, and they're not going to. If it's privileged information, it's privileged information, and you're not going to get to them.
Nearly 3 weeks ago, I provided you with a list of questions related to communications you may have had with the White House about the circumstances of your hiring, the termination of Mr. Sessions, and any insight you may have into the special counsel's investigation, among other topics.
Now, did you hear that? 3 weeks ago, he got a list of these kinds of questions. Now, if you wonder why Matt Whitaker was reluctant to agree to this, that's why. I mean, he knew it was a setup from square one. He knew it. That's what it was going to be. So this whole thing, Matt Whitaker knew what he was getting into. This guy walked into a lion's den and he knew he was walking in there. The whole idea that they sent him all these questions, what evidently Nadler is implying here is that he was supposed to take all those questions to the White House and tell them he was going to be asked about that. So would it be okay if he talked about it? But that's just not how it works. Sorry, Jerry. Plus, if he'd have done that, then you would have chewed him out for going to the White House and talking to them about the questions that you gave him to talk to the White House about. So I know that's what they would have done. So Whitaker was caught either way. If he would have done it, they would have complained about that. If he didn't do it, they were going to complain about that.
I gave you those questions in advance so that you would have time to consult with the White House on any possible question of executive privilege. I understand that you may disagree with the committee about your responsibility to undertake that review, and as a consequence, you may not fully respond to every question we ask today. As we discussed, I am willing to work with the department on those disagreements on a case-by-case basis. But I take your reluctance to answer questions about these communications as a deeply troubling sign.
A deeply troubling sign of what? That he's faithful to his boss? That he refuses to be a leaker? Is that troubling to you, Jerry? Because are you so used to working with leakers that you think that that's how everyone should be? Well, Whitaker's not going to leak. He's not going to say stuff he's not supposed to. Get over it, Jerry.
When our members ask if you conveyed sensitive information to the President, or ignored ethics advice at the direction of the President, or worked with the White House to orchestrate the firing of your predecessor, the answer should be no.
Okay, did you hear that? Essentially what he was accusing Whitaker there of, he accused Whitaker of working with Trump to get rid of Sessions. Yeah, to get rid of Sessions. I mean, nobody worked to get rid of Sessions. That was part of the plan. We know it was part of the plan. It was something that was determined from the time Sessions started. He knew he wasn't going to be in there long. He had a role to play. He played the role. He moved off stage. That's how it works. And it was time for Whitaker to take the stage. So they're upset because of that. So they're accusing Whitaker of working with Trump to oust Sessions. Yeah, that's what he really said. When I heard this the first time, I was like, what? You really did say that? I was having some computer issues, so I was actually watching it in double time. I don't know if you know. You can go down here and you can click on this and you can change it, the speed different. And you can change the speed so it's a different speed. And you can go twice as fast. That's usually what I do. I go 1.5 to 2 times faster when I'm watching stuff like this because it can take so long. And like I said, I was having trouble because it kept messing up and I had to keep refreshing the page and then I was missing portions. So I just let it go a little bit and then I went back and I watched it. It was easier and kind of less painful that way because it wasn't as long. But still, it lasted 6 hours, so we're not going through all that.
Failure to respond fully to our questions here today in no way limits the ability of this committee to get the answers in the longer run, even if you are a private citizen when we finally learn the truth. And although I am willing to work with the department to obtain this information, I will not allow that process to drag out for weeks and months. The time for this administration to postpone accountability is over.
Did you catch that? The time for this administration to avoid accountability is over. Yeah, see, they think Trump has done so many bad things. Why? Because of projection. That's what they do. They accuse people of doing what they themselves have done. And so they assume that's what we've been doing, but it's not. That's not what Trump's administration's been doing. It's been working hard to get things cleaned up. So Nadler has to put that little dig in there.
It is my intent that there be no surprises today. We have laid all of the groundwork for this hearing out in the open. We have given you months to prepare. We have publicly documented every request we have made.
Publicly documented every request we've made, although I'm having trouble finding those. Because if you look at the House Judiciary website, it has been really revamped. And you can't even find a link to the minority page there. I mean, there is no link. All you can see is the Democrat side of things. You cannot see anything from the Republicans, which I think is really not fair. I think all government committees like this should have links to both the majority and the minority stuff. Because if you don't, it is so blatantly one-sided. It really surprised me that it was so much so. But yes, and you can't find anything, and so I didn't see any of the letters. But I will look to see if they're posted, and they should be posted. This is the Oversight Committee. This should be posted on their website. But again, like I said, I haven't found the letters yet on there. I'm sure they're somewhere, just not sure where. Maybe they're on the DOJ.
We have provided our Republican colleagues with a meaningful opportunity to weigh in on the process. We have nothing to hide from you or anyone else. We hope you have nothing to hide from us.
You have nothing to hide, Jerry. Then why in the world were you so passionate about getting Rod Rosenstein in there? How come when President Trump wanted to declassify all these things, all of a sudden you guys got in a panic because you didn't want any of this coming out? What do you have to hide, Jerry? Why in the world didn't you want all these things declassified?
Despite the ethics advice you were given, Mr. Whitaker, you insisted on remaining in charge of the special counsel's investigation.
How dare you not listen to our deep state people that told you you needed to recuse yourself? How dare you not listen to our people?
A job that comes with the responsibility to protect the special counsel until his work is complete. Your testimony here today is vital to that responsibility and to our shared responsibility to find the truth.
So evidently, when it comes to the Department of Justice, the only thing they see is the special counsel. That's all they see. That's it. They see nothing else. Now, if you go to the Department of Justice website, which I've been to many times, they have all kinds of things going on, all kinds of programs that are doing things. They have, the immigration issues. They have the drugs and the gangs and all kinds of stuff is going on that you can read if you go to the Department of Justice website. So why is this only focused on the special counsel? And if you listen to Mr. Collins later on, which I'm not going to put on this video, but he comes back and he says, hey, this is supposed to be oversight of the entire department. This is not focused on one thing, and that's all they want.
Protect the department and to follow the facts and the law to their conclusion. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to recognize the ranking member.
Okay, and that's the end of his statement. And then it goes to the ranking member, Mr. Collins, who does come back at him. Now, Mr. Collins does a pretty good job with it. He sets it out very clearly because he says pretty much the same things I just said. And you can tell he's not very comfortable with this. He would rather not be sitting in this hearing and going through this because he thinks that there are so many things they need to be asking Matt Whitaker, and they're not going to do that because Nadler has just laid out what's going to happen. He has laid out that it's all going to be about the special counsel. It's going to be a confirmation hearing for Matt Whitaker. And it's going to be something that they're going to try to dig up dirt on Trump to try to build their case that he is obstructing justice. So that's the whole point of it. And he laid it all out. Everybody else that talks now from the Democrat point of view is pretty much just repeating the same things, the same theme. That is what their plan of attack was. And make no mistake, folks, these guys got together. The Democrats on this committee, they worked together and they came up with a cohesive battle plan, a plan of attack. And that is what you watch unfolding when you watch the rest of this. Now, I don't know why there weren't more Republicans there. There were only 8 Republicans that voted on most things, and there probably should have been a few more. I'm not sure why they weren't there. And even that, there weren't a lot asking questions. Almost all of the questions came from Democrats, because usually in these committees, you have one Democrat and then you have one Republican. You have one Democrat and then one Republican. And so the person on the hot spot gets a little bit of a relief. Well, Matt Whitaker did not get much relief. There were a few Republicans that asked him questions, but not a lot of them. Most of them, and the ones that did, were asking some very substantial, good questions. You had the same topics over and over. The special counsel, Matt Whitaker's confirmation or lack thereof, and then you had Trump. And those were their 3 topics. That's what they talked about the whole time. So if you didn't get a chance to watch this video, like I said, it was 6 hours long. If you've got 3 hours to kill, though, you can always go over here and you can do the double speed thing. And honestly, if my videos, I tend to ramble sometimes, and I don't get offended if you put me on double speed or 1.5 speed or whatever. That doesn't offend me. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you, this whole opening speech. Yes, that was just the opening. And then it went from there for another 6 hours. So if you're a praying person, pray for Matt Whitaker, because these people hate him. They are fearful of him. He terrifies them that he's going to do something before he leaves. And I think that may very well happen. I hope it does. I really do. I hope he just blasts everything open on his last day. I hope he takes the opportunity to put out all the documents that have been declassified, and I hope that he gets rid of Rosenstein so we can finally have a Department of Justice that runs well. So that's my take on this, and I just wanted to share it with you. So thanks for stopping by, And remember to click that subscribe button because I'm working on getting 60,000 subscribers by my birthday, which is in the middle of April. So if you could help me out, that would be really great. Thank you so much for stopping by. I will see y'all later.